What is up? My name is Mystery Gomez and welcome back. Now, E3 is finally over. Man, it feels like each year E3 just goes longer and longer, but it is finally done. Now, I wasn't even planning on watching E3 because I don't really care about E3. But my friend Jeremy, who I run a channel with called Zip Smash, link down below, he said if I watched at least the big three, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo's press conference, that he would watch the Emoji Movie. And let me tell you something, if your friend gives you permission to torture him, you take that. Because my gosh, now it's over. I've paid my price, Jeremy has to pay his. But I was like, what the hell? I'm already watching Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. I might as well watch all the other E3 press conferences and see what I think. And I decided, hey, if I'm watching all of these, why don't I make a video about them, rating them from worst to best? Because, you know, this E3, all I can say is, man, you know, it's here. It's like, take it or leave it. I mean, yes, they announced some really good games and they get me really excited for them, but you can't play a lot of them yet. Some of them you could have played if you were actually at E3 and playing some of those demos, and then some of those games were available to play as soon as they were announced. But for the most part, you're just there waiting. They're just companies saying, hey, we made a game. It's not ready yet, but we made a game. Now, I did not rate them based on my, personal preferences. Some maybe I did, but I overall rated them based on, how good the press conference was. How excited did they get me for the games? What were the variety of games did they show me? How much faith do I have in these companies after watching E3? Because I feel like that's the main thing E3 was built for. It was built for loyalty. How loyal are you to your fan? What kind of games are they going to release? How soon are they coming out? So that is basically what I did. Now, don't expect like a huge analytical thing of these E3s. It's just really, it's an overview. I'm not analyzing each and every game they announced, but I will be talking about some of them. So without further ado, here we go.
Skyrim Shuffle.
Oh, Bethesda. I forget half the time that Bethesda exists, because I don't play much of their games. I've only played the first Fallout, and I've never really gotten into Skyrim. But trust me, I haven't forgotten that Skyrim exists, because Bethesda just keeps reminding us. It's sad to see that more people remember Elder Scrolls series just as Skyrim. I've heard so many great things about their other games that they've released, but I never hear anyone talk about them because everyone only talks about Skyrim. Now, it's fine if one game takes the popularity of all the others, but the company shouldn't forget that the other 4 games don't exist. But anyways, that's just what their E3 press conference was. And it was just about Skyrim, and it was pretty boring. But hey, you know what? I understand that they do release great games, such as Doom and Fallout 4. I've heard amazing things about their game, and they wanted to remind us that those are great games, but they wanted us to remind us that it's also in VR. Now, VR was kind of talked about in this year's E3, but I see VR as more of a take it or leave it kind of thing, where it's like if you have VR or you're interested in VR, this will excite you, but most people don't have VR. So it's not really exciting, and the price point of VR isn't really appealing to most people. So I don't feel like this is really an innovative thing, having Doom and Fallout in VR. It's interesting, but it's just not for me, and I don't think it's for most consumers. And speaking of inconvenient price points, paid mods. Ooh, how excited am I to pay money for these mods? Well, okay, that's not the whole thing. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and I'm not really gonna go into it, but essentially, Bethesda really wants you to pay for mods and mod accessories, and they want to make it sound all cool, like, oh, we're helping the developers this way. But really, I only think it's helping themselves, but mods already help them anyway, so they're just getting more out of it, I don't think it's a really good idea, and I don't think anyone in E3 saw this as exciting news. Skyrim is being released on the Nintendo Switch, but wasn't Skyrim released 2 generations ago on the PS3 and Xbox 360? Yes, it was, but now it's released 2 generations later on a portable console. Now that could be exciting, but considering how low Nintendo's internal memory is, I don't think you're going to be able to install mods, and I don't think Nintendo has any plans of actually releasing mods such as the PS4 and Xbox One did. So it's not really too exciting. Now Dishonored, it looks good. Dishonored and Dishonored 2 both look like great games. I've personally never had the chance to play them myself, but they look good. But the game they announced, which was kind of like a spin-off kind of thing, I don't know if it was like a full game or it's like DLC or something like that, but I feel like that's only going to interest people who've played Dishonored and Dishonored 2, but I'm not part of that, and I really don't know anyone who has played Dishonored and Dishonored 2, so I don't know how much that's going to interest people, so it's not a super exciting news. Now, the most exciting news by far by Bethesda is the Wolfenstein 2, or not the Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein 2. That actually looks like a great game. I played the first Wolfenstein, I had a pretty good time with it. I liked how it was trying to be different from most shooters at the time, and Doom was actually also trying to be different from most shooters, so I hope it takes the best of Wolfenstein and the best of Doom and sort of mix them both. Overall, it looked pretty boring, the press conference. You know, I liked it that they were trying to be creative with it, you know, having a little animation style and have like a awesome announcer, but that didn't really do much because at the end of the day, it's about the games. And when you are just reminding us about a 6-year-old game and then VR and then rarely show like new things, like you're just showing us franchises that you've already had. Now, don't get me wrong, other people in this E3 have also been reminding us of, you know, the same IPs as before, but you have to excite us when you do that. And Skyrim just doesn't have the excitement that it used to. Wolfenstein still has that excitement, which I'm glad they have announced. You know, Dishonored still has some sort of excitement, still has something new, but we didn't really see much new in terms of Dishonored besides just like a brand new game. We don't know what new things are going to do in it, so really we're just left hanging in terms of what Bethesda is doing in 2017. Hey JD, how's it going, buddy? I sometimes forget you're on my shoulder.
EA Games.
Challenge everything.
EA. It's not on the bottom. I really thought EA would be on the bottom because what is there to talk about with EA? There's really not much. I mean, they do have pretty good IPs from time to time, and they do have pretty good games, but how are they going to excite me about their sports franchise? Well, let me tell you this. At least EA tried. EA tried to have a good presentation. I think overall, you know, it wasn't good, but it definitely was, it was far from horrible. You know, they had different speakers up, and they had like a drum line. You know, those, even though it didn't really impress me personally, I still think that they tried. So that's all I can say. They tried harder than Bethesda, and that's what's put them higher. So some of the noticeable things include Madden having a story mode. Now, in my honest opinion, I don't know why more sports games don't have a story mode. I mean, there's a bunch of sports movies that come out every year, so why can't they just add, you know, what they do in sports movies and just put them in a game? I really don't understand that. Or maybe just try something new. But I feel like more sports games should add something for, you know, the single players, for those who aren't playing, you know, multiplayer all the time. But again, sports games aren't really for me. The last sports game I remember playing fondly was MLB 06 for the PSP. So I really haven't touched sports games since. I do have NBA 2K16, but I only played it for like 20 minutes. So again, it's really not my thing, but I do know that it's a lot of other people's things. People do like sports games. They do enjoy playing them. So the fact that EA did try to make it entertaining for those people, that's still points for EA. You know, then we got an announcement for Need for Speed. So there's a new Need for Speed game, and the last time I remember playing Need for Speed was actually about racing and not about anything else, just street racing. So it's been a long time since I've played it. Again, I'm not interested in it, but they made it look exciting. The game actually looks pretty nice. It looks pretty exciting. I'm not really sure if I'm going to be picking up the game, but again, it looked pretty good. So for all you Need for Speed fans, I hope you enjoy this game. You should tell me if this game looks any good to you guys. But then the most exciting news by far was EA, bringing other developers, such as the people who made Brothers. I forgot the full name, but it's called Brothers. And they announced that they're making a game called One Way Out, which that game looks phenomenal. It's actually one of the really good announcements that happened in all of E3, because it's actually like a true co-op game. And what I mean by that is that you actually you rely more on your partner than almost any other game I've seen, because you have to look at everything your partner does. It's always going to be split screen. You're never going to have it where you are only looking at yourself. You have to look at what your teammate is doing all the time. So that is getting me really excited. I'm glad EA is doing this, and I'm glad EA took the time. They took a really good amount of time to actually show that. And I think more developers or more companies need to express that AAA gaming does not have the power that it really used to. Indie developers can make such amazing games, and a lot of people can be playing it, and it can actually change the industry. So more AAA developers need to put focus on that, and EA did. So I am impressed by that. Now, for Star Wars Battlefront 2, I'm not a super huge Star Wars fan, so I like the movies, but I'm not a super huge fan. Battlefront 1, it looked like an amazing game, but it really didn't have much. It was just a multiplayer game, which, fine. And then, EA came out and said, "Oh, I apologize, we didn't make Battlefront as good as it was," which is you guys know what you did. Shut up. You guys could have made the game great in the beginning. You guys didn't want to for some reason, and I can't think of a reason why. But they're like, "Oh, we'll change it in Battlefront 2. We'll add a story mode, and we'll make it more interesting." And then they showed off, people playing Battlefront 2, which, looked pretty good. I don't really think it's going to be very innovative or anything like that. Just from what I've seen, it didn't look very innovative. You can actually tell from my voice that it just looks meh, it's a new game. EA actually made an effort to look good. Bethesda didn't. That is why EA... I love you, JD. His name is JD, by the way. So that is why EA is slightly above Bethesda.
PC Master Race.
PC Gamer Show. Now, I really don't know how to talk about the PC Gamer Show, because unlike all the other companies, they're not really trying to sell you on something that is huge and amazing, because in terms of PC gaming as, sort of being compared to console gaming, console gaming is just more exciting in general, because they're trying to sell you on AAA games you can't get anywhere else. But with PC gaming, you kind of already know they have amazing games. You kind of already know that. You either have a PC or you don't. So in the PC Gamer Show, they're not really trying to convince you to buy a PC. They're just convincing you to buy a game. So with some of that, it's really good. But then at the same time, it's just not as exciting, because they're not showing super amazing games that could change the industry. They're just showing us good games, and that's all JD, don't fall off. They're just showing you great games. That's really all it is, and that's all it has to be. So that keeps PC gaming from being on the top, but at the same time, it's never going to be as bad as, any of the other ones, because PC can essentially just show any good game that they want. At some point, maybe if there's an Undertale 2, then the PC Gamer Show can show that, and it could be amazing. But they have a ton of games to choose from. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. They have a bunch of games to choose from, and a lot of the games they do pick sometimes are from indie developers. So, you know, it's sort of a niche kind of thing. They show a lot of niche games that people will like. So there's not really a huge point of talking about the PC Gamer Show. They did a good job. I like how they interview the developers, because the developers, they're PC gamers too in a way. They are gamers. So it is nice to see them talk. It is nice to see them socialize. Yes, sometimes the interviews can be cringy, but they're trying. They're trying to make these developers look as real as possible. So again, the PC Gamer Show, it's what you expect. It's nothing new, it's nothing interesting, but I like that they try every year, and I like how they, you know, they try to get involved with the audience by actually getting those, you know, developers on stage and talking, because for people who do love XCOM 2, they are passionate about those games, so they do like to see the developers. You know, same thing with Killing Floor franchise. People like those games, so they like to see the developer up there talking about the Killing Floor games and, you know, what they try to do. This one, there's not much to talk about, but it's good. It's good.
Jump with me, grab coins with me,
Nintendo. Nintendo's press conference is at the bottom of the other three. Not to say that Nintendo's, okay, all your Nintendo, I'm a Nintendo fanboy, okay? I love Nintendo. Nintendo's like my favorite gaming company out there, so don't get mad. Also, here's the thing about Nintendo's E3. They try to do something different with all of them. They always try to do something new. They always try to do something different. And actually, the way Nintendo handles their E3, I actually like it the most. But unfortunately, that puts less attention on the press conference. I can't include the Treehouse because that's not a press conference. So all the games they announce there, can't do that. You know, all the tournaments that they do, that's actually good. It's actually good to see Nintendo actually include their fans in this E3 by having tournaments such as ARMS and Pokken. That's great, but I can't talk about it because it's not part of the press conference. So they're at the bottom. But there's another good reason why they're at the bottom, and we'll go through with that. We'll go through that as we continue. Well, I guess let us just start with why Nintendo is at the bottom of Sony and Microsoft. The main reason is Nintendo likes to be Nintendo. That can be seen as a good thing in many situations, but it can also be seen as a bad thing. But if you ever seen my live stream where you know, I saw the Nintendo release their Nintendo Switch on stage, the one issue I had was there was not enough third-party developers, you know, announcing their games. And to me, I see that as a huge problem, because Nintendo, you know, one of their faults with the Wii U was that they had absolutely no third-party support. They tried in like the first 2 years, but after the Wii U was not successful, they mostly left. But this has been going on for most of their consoles. Ever since after the Super Nintendo, they've sort of just lost a lot of their third-party developers because they weren't in the top. They weren't up front anymore. But even some of their consoles where they were up front, such as the Wii, third-party developers didn't want to really make games for them because they didn't really follow the traditional style. So Nintendo has been sort of going on its own thing, and that can lead to a huge problem. So, you know, when I want to buy the Switch, I want to get great games. You know, I do want to get those Nintendo games, but I also want to get those other third-party games that are announced. I still like those games. I don't want to buy a console that's just going to be for a specific party. So I love the Wii U. The Wii U has amazing games, but it bothers me how there's no other third-party developers making games. You know, third-party developers make a ton of great games. Why wasn't Skyrim on the Wii U? You know, things like that. They had a lot of great games. All of their games actually looked really great. All of those games I actually want to buy if I ever get, you know, the Switch. If I ever get the Switch, I want to buy all of those games that they announced. But that's just because of me being a Nintendo fanboy. So if you are a Nintendo fanboy, you probably liked all the games they had too. Xenoblade 2 looks great. It's coming out holiday 2017. There's really not much I can talk about it. That's really all I can say. You know, I wish more people played the game. I wish more people knew about the game, but I'm glad it has its own fan base. It's, you know, I'm very glad for that. And then there's Kirby. Who doesn't like Kirby? I love Kirby. I think Kirby is Nintendo's most, like, consistent franchise, where all the games you can say are pretty good, and they change up the formula just enough to get you something new. Like, you know, if you're a Kirby fan, you want to play every single, you know, Kirby game because of how consistent and how great they are. And then they announced the Yoshi game, so it's kind of following like Yoshi's Woolly World. Is that what it was called? I think that's what it was called. I'm not sure. But yeah, you know, that last Yoshi game was pretty great and it was a lot of fun. And this one's sort of following the same formula. So I liked that a lot too. There's not much to say. It just looks like a great game and I want to have it when it comes out. The next two announcements really pissed me off. And it's part of the reason why Nintendo did not step above Sony and Microsoft. So with E3, it's called E3 2017. So that's telling you, when I think of E3, it's like, okay, why should I buy whatever you want me to buy as soon as possible? And the one thing I really just don't like is when they announce, hey, you know, we're making a game, so don't worry, it's coming out, don't worry. Nintendo has a lot of great franchises. They have a lot of great games coming out. And instead of announcing their great games, they're just telling their fans, hey fans, we're coming out with a game. So they announced like a traditional Pokemon game coming out for the Switch, which that is a big deal. That is a big deal, good points. But then Metroid Prime 4. Now let me tell you something. I'm excited to see that they're making a Metroid Prime 4. I was very excited to see the announcement. But they had nothing to show for it. All they had was a logo and a 40-second trailer. This is called E3 2017, and I don't even think this game is coming out in the 2010s. It might be coming out in 2020 maybe. I don't know. So why are they announcing it now on E3? Why don't they use that time to sell us on a game that might be coming out for the 3DS maybe? Why don't you take that time to show us some 3DS games? Because how long are we going to wait for these games? So you seriously just are going to announce Metroid Prime 4 and say, yeah, you know what? We made a great E3. You know, they're going to buy our consoles now so that they can wait for a game that comes out on 2020. I don't know. I think that's just horrible to me. I don't like that. I like that they announced it, but I don't think that they should have used that time to announce games that are still in development and we don't know anything about them. To me, that's just poor strategy there. Show us a game that is coming out. Show us a game that we can be excited for. But no, they didn't really want to do that. And then they talked about Skyrim. Skyrim, you can dress up your character as Link from Breath of the Wild. Again, I'm just bored of talking about Skyrim. I swear to God, if they talk about Skyrim E3 2018, I'm gonna fly over there and literally just like slap everyone in Bethesda in the face, because they gotta stop talking about Skyrim, dude. Seriously, or they at least gotta stop hyping it up like it's some amazing franchise. That's all I ask for. I almost forgot to talk about Mario Odyssey. That game looks great. I don't need to go through much about it. Mario Odyssey, it looks fantastic. I mean, there's Breath of the Wild DLC, so that's good too. It's nice to see that they have pretty good DLC. They showed Rocket League. You know, they showed Rocket League. So get excited for Rocket League. You know, go play with your friends. I mean, it looks like a great game, but I already have it on my PC. Most everyone who's wanted to play Rocket League already has it. Show us a game that, you know, that's fun and that isn't old. I mean, not that old games are bad things, but it's just that, like, most people who wanted to play it already played it. I already played Rocket League. I'm probably not going to buy it again for the Switch. Nintendo's at the bottom of the C3. Yay, hate comments. Yay. Jeremy's probably going to hate this. It's funny. He's probably going to hate it. They should have done more. They should have shown us more exciting games, and they shouldn't be blue balling us. Seriously, if the game's not ready yet, don't spend your precious E3 time telling us that it's in development, because who cares? But again, all their games looked really great. I like the way Nintendo handles their E3. It makes me want to go to E3 and join those tournaments and talk to those fans. I do want to do those things. Like, if I ever went to E3, I would go see Nintendo because I liked the way they did it. Sony beat Nintendo in this year's E3. Sony beat Nintendo in this year's E3. At least in my opinion. So, yeah. I mean, not by much. Sony didn't show much either. but they did something that Nintendo doesn't do very often, and that is show third-party support, you know, show more variety of games. I love Nintendo, but please, Nintendo, show me some variety. And Sony showed us more variety. And in my opinion, Sony, graphically, they show like the best looking games for their console. I don't know what it is about Sony's developers, but they really know how to make amazing looking games. Again, not too much exciting going on with Sony, but you know, they did a little bit better than Nintendo. So the first two announcements, you know, Uncharted and then an expansion to Horizon Zero Dawn, you know, they looked good, but nothing more than just good. I mean, how are you going to chop Uncharted 4? There's not really a lot of ways to do it, so just make a spin-off. But they've made good spin-offs before. Well, they made one good spin-off, which was on the Vita, so I'm sure they can do it again. And then Sony talked about Monster Hunter Worlds. Whew, I am excited for this game. I have wanted other Monster Hunters to come out on consoles that weren't on the 3DS. Not because I don't like playing them on my 3DS, I do, but I need a game I need a Monster Hunter on a console that more of my friends own so that I can play with them and I can show them how amazing Monster Hunter is. Because not enough people know how great Monster Hunter is. Monster Hunter is an amazing franchise. It takes a while to like understand the controls and whatnot, but it is an amazing franchise that I am so glad I took the time to understand. And it's coming out for PC too! Yay! I don't have to buy a new console! Yay! And even if I had a PS4 Pro, I would probably just play it on my PC anyways. Yeah! Woo! Right, JD? Don't more people need to play Monster Hunter? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They need to play more Monster Hunter. You know, then they showed Call of Duty. I mean, it's Call of Duty. So that's another take it or leave it. And then PlayStation VR, which is again, take it or leave it. Either you're excited for it or you're not. Gosh, I need to make a video just on VR, seeing where that's heading, because it's a mess right now. Then there's God of War. God of War looks fantastic as always. It looks like a great game. It looks like it's going to be worth everyone's time, so that looks great. Gosh, I forgot the name. Dang it, I forgot the name and I didn't write it down. No! All right, well, I'm just gonna put it on the screen. That game looks great. It looks like a little bit different from other zombie games, so I kind of like that and I'm excited. And then they announced a Spider-Man game made by Insomniac. And so far, well, you're looking at me, I'm a Spider-Man 2 fan. Not only is that my favorite, movie, a Spider-Man movie, but that is also one of my favorite PS2 games, Spider-Man 2. So I am glad to see that Insomniac's making it because they make fantastic games. Overall, Sony could have been more exciting. They weren't. But they didn't do anything horrible. There's no bad announcements. They didn't do anything horrible. So yeah, that's just how it is. Microsoft, they won E3 2017. Well, they didn't win E3 2017, just out of the big three. Why? Well, they had everything I want in a E3 press conference. Even if I'm not excited for the games, they did everything they needed to do. So the first thing, they announced their new console with an amazing name, the Xbox One X. I mean, the Xbox One S wasn't a horrible name. But now that there's a console called the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X, that is a problem. When your name is Melvin and you're like, wow, this makes my name look good, when your console's the Wii U and you say to yourself, wow, I have such a great name. This is the worst. This is the worst name for a console that I can think of right now. So that's the worst thing Microsoft has done this year. But I don't know how this is going to affect them in the future. I don't know. $500, not bad. I think consoles are going to have to continue to be around that price if they want their consoles to be more powerful than PCs. They showed a variety of games. They did a pretty good job announcing the Xbox One X, what it meant, and that it's essentially a new console, but it works well with all your other Xbox One games. So that's great. You know, when you buy a new console, you want to make sure that you still have a lot of good games to play when it comes out. So that's great. So even if you never had an Xbox One, or you've had Xbox Ones before, those both things entice you, because even if you've never played those other Xbox One games, they will be up-res to 4K. Now, I don't know that many people that have 4K televisions. I know they're getting cheaper and cheaper, so eventually people will have more 4K televisions. And then also, they announced a lot of games. A lot of games. Like, the majority of their press conference was just showing games and not really talking to developers much, which that's personally what I would prefer. I would prefer, like, the beginnings to, like, you know, talk about their games, and then the rest to just show games. Show us, like, actual gameplay footage. You know, some can be trailers, and then some, you know, some trailers, but mostly gameplay footage. Microsoft did that, and that's all they needed to do. They did that, and I'm excited. So they showed a lot of great games that are gonna come out same day as the Xbox One S. They showed a lot of variety. There was actually a platformer that they announced. That's great. They showed a platformer. They're showing variety. Even though not a lot of people play platformers, I'm glad to show that they actually put effort in showing that to people. And there's really not much else to say about that in terms of their presentation and their press conference. I just think they did a good job. They did a really, really good job. Yes, are you excited to know that they did a good job, JD? Now, who won E3? Personally, I did not think this company was going to be number one in anything, because usually the big three kind of take the stage and they sort of win everything in terms of showing us games we really want to play. But overall, again, even if I don't want to play all of their games, if they get me excited for it, if they try to get my excitement, you know, I say that's a win for them. Ubisoft sort of made me excited throughout more of the press conference than any of the other ones. You know, when they take an hour of my time, I felt like watching Ubisoft's was the least amount wasted, because they showed me why I should get excited for a lot of their games, and you know, that's great. That's great to see. So let's start with the biggest announcement that they had, at least in my opinion. Well, no, not the biggest. The second biggest, Mario and Rabbids. They actually did a really good job showing this. Not only did they have the developer of the game up there, but they also had Shigeru Miyamoto talk about the game, and he seemed excited too. It's so great to see two companies work together to actually show some excitement. Now, you might be saying, hey, Melvin, you see, Mario and Rabbids was a third-party game, so why was Nintendo at the bottom? Well, it's not really, it was made by a third-party developer, but it's still Mario related, so I don't really count that. I would prefer something more original, more new, something that's more of their idea. Mario Rabbids does look like a great game, so I love that. It's kind of an XCOM style battle game, and it actually looks like it looks to be pretty strategic, and I hope more people do get into like the XCOM sort of style strategy, real-time strategy games, because those are great. At first I thought it was going to be like a Mario Party kind of thing, where it was sort of like gonna replace, or not replace, sort of be a spin-off to like those Mario Party games where it's like a party game. I know that they release a lot of games so many times, like there were so many Assassin's Creed games and, you know, whatnot. They have a lot of franchises that they love to like beat to the ground. But here's the thing, Assassin's Creed took a year off, so that game actually looks pretty good. Far Cry 5. Most of their Far Cry games are excellent games that many people like. There was a pirate game that also looked pretty nice. So it's kind of like the Black Flag from Assassin's Creed, but just a fully fleshed out game, which that's great. I think there needs to be a bunch more pirate games in general. I just enjoy pirate games a lot. I just feel like the lore of pirates just works perfectly as a full-fledged game, and I think more needs to be out there. So that's great. You know, VR, which is, again, take it or leave it. If you're excited for it, great. If you're not excited for it, it's not really the end of the world. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, when I criticized Nintendo because they didn't have a proper trailer for when they were announcing a Pokemon game for the Switch and then Metroid Prime 4 for the Switch. Beyond Good and Evil 2 had an amazing trailer. It's an amazing trailer. It's the best trailer in all of E3. Well, not like all other E3s, but like this year's E3. It was just fantastic. It's getting me excited for the game. The game might not even look that way, and we have to wait years for it to come out. But if you're trying to get us excited for a game, at least do it this way. At least show us a trailer. At least show us something. And they showed us, like, this trailer looked amazing. It looked phenomenal. I hope the game looks like that. I really hope it does. I know it's going to take years for it to come out. It's nowhere near ready. But again, the trailer showed me so much that I am excited, and I had no problem with only a trailer. I had no problems with it because of how amazing it was. So overall, Ubisoft just showed games I wanted, like, that just looked exciting. All of their games really looked exciting. Except maybe Just Dance. I think they showed Just Dance. I don't even remember if they showed Just Dance. They probably did. I didn't really care about that. But all their other games, The Crew 2, the new Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, like, those are just really good games. And they showed us so many, and they showed us trust. They gained our trust. Ubisoft, you've gained my trust. You're probably gonna lose it sometime. You're probably gonna make a horrible decision, and I'm not gonna like it, but hats off to you. You had the best E3 of 2017. Now, what did you think of E3 2017? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was the worst thing in the world? Do you care about E3? I sure as hell didn't, but I still made a video talking about E3 anyways. So yeah, tell me what you think. Comments below. It's just E3. So who really cares? Who really cares? I'm a PC guy. If I want a good game, I just have to go on Steam. And there's probably a good game that came out like 2 years ago that's probably like $20 now. So I don't really care. I don't even buy new games. Why did I do this? Who cares? Why does anyone care? JD, why should I care about anything? JD, come on, come here. Why should I care about anything? Why? What are you doing? What is that in your mouth?